It is a pleasure to be joined by ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reid. Jordan, exciting times ahead with the NFL Scouting Combine and the NFL Draft in full swing. Talking about some of the Penn State guys, the Nittany Lions bringing 10 guys to the NFL Scouting Combine. Just talk to me a little bit about what the NFL covered so much in Penn State players.
Well, it just feels like every year that Penn State has some type of explosive athlete. In years past, where there's Michael Parsons, there's plenty of other players. Saquon Barkley is another that comes to mind that was just a ridiculously high tester. And just listening to a guy we'll talk about here soon, I'm sure, and Chop Robinson, just hear and see his voice and how excited he was to really test tomorrow at the combine. I think there's just so much excitement about all of these guys.
Big week ahead for a lot of these guys. Obviously, we know about Chop Robinson and what he brings, but who are you just most looking forward to this week from Penn State to see what they can do?
Well, there's quite a bit. Adisa Isaac is another that I'm really, really excited about. I think he's going to be a big time tester. Curtis Jacobs is another that I'm really excited to. And there's plenty more. I think Kalen King is going to be a really big tester too. So they're loaded on the defensive side of the ball. And then there's some other players to be excited about as well. But those three or four who I'm really excited to see test.
NFL fits are a big topic. Just talk to me a little bit about where you see some of the fits for these Penn State guys for teams like the Eagles, Steelers, and Ravens.
Well, I think Chop, I think he's probably going to go somewhere in the mid to late 20s or early 30s. I think that's a comfortable range of where he could end up going. So somebody like, I think the Eagles will be a great fit for him, or even the Ravens will be a good fit for him. I think the Steelers need some more help or some more depth off of the edge. So Adisa Isaac could be an option for them, but also Kalen King. They need somebody opposite of Joey Porter Jr., who they hit a home run on, another Penn State guy in last year's draft. So Kalen King could be a good option for the Steelers, probably somewhere along the third round. I think that's a good spot of where Kalen could go right now.
Of course, every year there are risers and fallers. Talk to me about which Penn State player you think might have the most to gain from Combine Week.
Well, Johnny Dixon. I think Johnny Dixon could be a definite option as far as somebody that's going to be a high-end tester. I expect him to probably run in somewhere in the 4.3s or the 4.4s. That would not surprise me at all. And then we know he definitely has good ball skills. He's been able to show that and demonstrate that throughout his career with the Nittany Lions. So I think Johnny Dixon is going to be a big-time tester, but also Curtis Jacobs. I'm excited to see him move around. I had an opportunity to see him down in Frisco, Texas at the Shrine Bowl, and I thought he had a really productive week.
Just talk to me about where Olu stands right now in the process.
Well, I think it's just funny seeing Olu go from being considered to be the top offensive tackle in the draft class coming into the year to now, some people having him in that 10 to 15 range. I still think very highly of Olu. I would be really surprised if he got past the Jets at number 10 overall. And we see this a lot of times with athletic offensive tackles just because they're so naturally gifted as pass protectors, but everybody starts to wonder about them as run blockers. But I always say when I'm looking at offensive tackles and I'm deciding how to rank them, I'm always going to take the more naturally gifted pass protectors as opposed to the run blockers, just because it's much easier to teach run blocking as opposed to the mechanisms and the mechanics of pass protection. Walking through the door, I think Olu has a chance to be one of the better or the most naturally gifted pass protectors in the NFL, but he has a ways to go as a run blocker. But the Michigan game and some others give you a lot of promise as far as what he can be as a run blocker on the next level. So he's another that I expect to be a big time tester. And it would surprise me if he once again starts to get that top 5 to 7 overall pick consideration.
Tight ends have been a big deal for Penn State in the past few years. They have another one this year in Theo Johnson. Just talk to me about what he's done this year and what you think he could look like in the NFL.
So I'm the conductor of the Theo Johnson train. I'm a big fan of Theo. So he's actually my third ranked tight end behind Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders of Texas. So the thing that I love about Theo, is just he's just this big, raw athlete that's really just getting by off natural ability. But just imagine once he starts to get NFL coaching and you start to push the ball to him a little bit more. So he had 7 receiving touchdowns in the final 8 games of Penn State's season last year. He had a big game in the bowl game against Ole Miss, I believe it was, to where he had a lot of production early on in that game. Ended up not playing in the second half, but you just saw some of the natural God-given talent and traits that he has. And we saw it at the Senior Bowl too. So he's just this big, raw, multiple piece of play that I think a team is going to get a steal probably somewhere in the third round with.
You like Theo Johnson a lot, but is there any other player that may be down there or not down there in general that you like for Penn State that may go higher than a lot of people think?
Yeah, so another that I'm a big fan of, and this guy is super underrated, is Hunter Norzad. I love him. Him coming over for Cornell I could just talk about this guy all day long. He's super smart, which is what you want at center. He's very strong. And once again, another player that I didn't know a whole bunch about coming into the Shrine Bowl. But once he started stacking productive days together, I'm like, man, I need to look more into this Penn State center. And I just fell in love with him after I saw him at the Shrine Bowl. So he'd probably go like fifth or sixth round, but it wouldn't surprise me if he turns into a starter eventually.
Jordan, thank you so much. Exciting times ahead for you the rest of this week and the rest of draft season. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. Thanks as always, Evan.